All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to be ancient legal detectives. Our case file? A text that's nearly 2,000 years old called the Talmud. And the mystery we're trying to solve is a seemingly simple rule about slaughtering animals that, you'll see, unravels into this incredible puzzle of logic and deduction.
So let's just start with a basic question. If you were the one making the rules for kosher slaughter, what would you say about the knife or the tool being used? You'd probably think, well, it's got to be sharp, right? It needs to cut cleanly, quickly. Seems pretty straightforward. And that's exactly where our story kicks off. So here's our first set of clues, coming from a text called the Mishnah. It lays out what works and what doesn't. A smooth sickle, a sharp piece of flint, even a reed, all good. But a serrated sickle, a saw, your teeth, or a fingernail? Nope, invalid. And the reason makes perfect sense. These things tend to tear and strangle instead of making a clean cut. So far, so good. Case closed, right? Well, not quite.
Now, just so we're all on the same page, what is the Mishnah? Think of it as the foundation of rabbinic law, compiled way back around the year 2000. It's like a collection of legal statutes, very concise, very authoritative. And it's the document our detectives are about to put under a microscope.
This is where the detective story really kicks into high gear. Because the later rabbis, whose discussions make up another text called the Gemara, they looked at that simple, straightforward rule and they spotted something a little off. A tiny detail in the wording that just didn't seem right. And here it is, the clue. The Mishnah doesn't say you may slaughter with a flint. It says, in the case of one who slaughters with a flint, his slaughter is valid. It's talking about something that's already happened. I mean, this just shows you how incredibly closely these ancient scholars were reading their texts.
And you might be thinking, okay, what's the big deal? It seems like such a tiny choice of words. But in the world of legal analysis, every single word carries immense weight. And this specific phrasing, it blows the case wide open, pointing to a whole hidden layer of complexity. So why does it matter so much?
To get it, we need to understand two crucial concepts in Jewish law. First, there's lechatchila. That means from the start. It's the ideal way, the gold standard, the by-the-book method. Then you've got diavad, which means after the fact. This describes a situation where, something wasn't done perfectly, but the result is still considered valid. It still counts.
And now we see the problem. That phrasing, one who slaughters, strongly suggests the Mishnah is giving an after the fact, a diavad ruling. It implies that, sure, if you already used a flint, the slaughter is valid, but you shouldn't choose to use one from the get-go. They're not the ideal lechachila tools for the job. But why not? They cut cleanly. What's the problem?
Okay, enter the Gemara. If the Mishnah is our initial case file, the Gemara is the detective's office. It's where the rabbis get together, debate the evidence, poke holes in every theory, and try to solve the mystery. And when you put the two together, Mishnah and Gemara, that's what we call the Talmud.
So, just as our detectives start trying to figure out why these tools might not be ideal, they uncover another source. It's called a Baraita, and it's from the same time period as the Mishnah. But this new piece of evidence, well, it seems to fly right in the face of our first clue.
Just look at this. On one hand, the Mishnah's wording makes it seem like using a flint is only okay diavad, after the fact. But on the other hand, this Baraita says straight up, one may slaughter with a flint. That sounds completely fine, totally lechatchila. So which is it? The investigation just got way more complicated.
Okay, so our detectives propose their first theory to try and make these two sources agree. What if they're actually talking about two totally different situations? Maybe the Baraita, which gives the green light from the start, is talking about a regular, detached flint that you hold in your hand. But the Mishnah, which only validates it after the fact, is talking about something different, using a sharp flint that's still attached to the ground.
Now, this theory actually lines up with a known debate between two major scholars. When it comes to slaughtering with a blade that's attached to the ground, Rabbi Ḥiyya says it's valid, but only after the fact. That fits our Mishnah perfectly. Meanwhile, the very famous Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi says it's completely invalid no matter what.
So it seems like we've solved it. Our Mishnah just follows the opinion of Rabbi Ḥiyya. But just when we think we're about to close the case, another piece of evidence surfaces. A different Baraita, and it throws the entire investigation into chaos. Because this one seems to contradict not just one, but both of our experts.
Get a load of this. This new evidence is a bombshell. The Baraita says you can slaughter with an attached blade from the very start.
This is a huge problem. It contradicts Rabbi Ḥiyya, who only permits it after the fact, and it completely contradicts Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, who says it's totally invalid. Our nice, neat theory is in shambles.
So after some really complex analysis, the Talmudic detectives figure out that our Mishnah, the very document that started this whole case, actually follows the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. But this creates an even bigger problem. We now have the same authority, the same great rabbi, seemingly taking two completely different positions. How is that possible?
Let's just put this up on the evidence board to make it clear. According to this new understanding, in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi says a certain slaughter is valid after the fact. But in his famous debate about attached blades, he says it's completely invalid. We have a direct contradiction from the exact same person. This is the climax of our detective story.
And this is where the genius of the whole process just shines. Faced with what looks like an impossible contradiction, the detectives don't give up. They propose a new distinction, a subtle, brilliant idea that could resolve everything in one fell swoop. This is the aha moment.
Here's the solution. What if not all attached blades are the same? The Talmud suggests a distinction between something that was originally attached, like a sharp rock that's just naturally part of a wall, and something that was detached and then reattached, like taking a regular knife and sticking it into that same wall. This single distinction cracks the case wide open. When Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi rules an attached blade is invalid, he's talking about an originally attached one. But when the Mishnah rules the slaughter is valid after the fact, it's referring to a tool that was detached and then reattached. Suddenly, the contradiction just evaporates. But, a good detective always needs proof. So the Talmud brings in one final piece of evidence, a baraita that without our new theory would be totally baffling. It says if you stick a knife in a wall, the slaughter is valid. But if you use a flint that's naturally sticking out of that same wall, the slaughter is not valid. Why on earth would there be a difference?
And this just perfectly illustrates the power of our theory. The knife stuck in the wall, that's our detached and reattached case, so the slaughter is valid after the fact. The flint emerging from the wall, that's originally attached, so the slaughter is completely invalid. Our theory perfectly explains this final, decisive piece of evidence. The case is closed.
So, what do we take away from this amazing little detective story? Well, we saw how a simple rule can hide these incredible layers of complexity. We learned that in this kind of thinking, every single word is a potential clue. The goal isn't just to find a rule, it's to build a harmonious system where all the sources can be true at the same time. And maybe, most importantly, we saw that the process itself, the questioning, the theorizing, the solving, is just as valuable as the final answer. And that kind of leaves us with one last thought. This ancient way of deep reading and relentless questioning turned a simple law into this profound intellectual journey. It really makes you wonder, what hidden depths, contradictions, and maybe even brilliant solutions are waiting to be discovered in the simple rules and ideas that we all take for granted in our own lives?